What is the peak purpose of what Jeet Kune Do is? And this is a big thing I think that's misunderstood. Please don't get mad at me about what I have to say. Hey guys, thank you for checking out our YouTube channel. My name's Sean Elders. I'm the founder and chief instructor of Pinnacle Combat Arts. Today we're going to talk about why Jeet Kune Do is so misunderstood. Let's get started. The main issue is that there's confusion about what Jeet Kune Do is, okay? Jeet Kune Do is not a style or a system.
You see, actually, I do not teach, karate because I do not believe in styles anymore. I mean, I do not believe that there is such thing as like Chinese way of fighting or the Japanese way of fighting or whatever way of fighting, because unless human beings have 3 arms and 4 legs, we will have a different form of fighting. But basically, we have only 2 hands and 2 feet. So styles tends to not only separate men, because they have their own doctrines, and then the doctrine became the gospel truth, that you cannot change.
Jeet Kune Do is a series of principles, concepts, theories, and philosophy, okay? These are the things that hold together and help you find your own way of fighting. Bruce Lee, when he was a kid, he would go to these rooftop battles and see these masters of different Kung Fu styles, Northern, Southern style Kung Fu, Wing Chun, Chuli Foot, and he started to formulate and realize that there were issues, even at an early age when he was a teenager. He started to see that the fights, he wouldn't see the people using the structure. For instance, if you're looking at Wing Chun, there would be these rooftop battles, and the Wing Chun guys would not maintain their structure during the battle. And so he started to see people go to the ground and go into different ranges that went outside of what they trained in. So Bruce Lee realized by watching these rooftop battles that there are 4 ranges of fighting: kicking range, punching range, trapping range, and grappling range, and clinch, which is part of the grappling range standing up. He realized that at that moment in time that there needed to be changes. His mind started to be altered. He realized certain things when he would fight different people. He realized that there was holes in the different types of training when he would watch these different fighters fight each other. And so that was a very important part of his progression in realizing that he needed to change the way he fought to still be able to use some of the basic concepts of Wing Chun, for instance, but now he had to modify it because things were changing. People were fighting differently. When you look back at Bruce Lee's life and you look back at Bruce Lee's his timeline of his life, he's in Hong Kong. He's a kid. He starts training with, for instance, Yip Man. He trains with all these different people in Choi Lee Foot and praying mantis style, and he's training, he's bartering with different instructors to learn different things. He boxes in high school. He does all these different things.
When Bruce arrived in the United States, he had the training in Wu style Tai Chi. Sometimes in Hong Kong they call it Unga. And he had the course training in Western boxing. He had training in fencing from his brother. That's epee, that goes from toe to head. He had training, obviously, in Wing Chun, and the other area was the training he had received in they call it Buk Pai, or it's Tam Toi. He knew 12 sets in Tam Toi. And then I believe he traded with a Choi Lee Fat man. So those were the arts that Bruce brought into the United States. What Bruce did, as it relayed to me, that he could never learn from the top man, because in those days, Kung Fu practitioners were quite prejudiced, and they didn't usually share the knowledge with other people from other styles. So what Bruce did, he knew that, so what he did would go to the 2nd or the 3rd or 4th man in the system and say, well, look at how would you like to learn Wing Chun? and I'll trade you my Wing Chun knowledge for your praying mantis. Let's say it's northern praying mantis. And that's what he did, because he knew that the head instructor wouldn't teach him. So he did that in southern mantis. Southern mantis, I believe he trained straight with the man. But a lot of the styles that he trained in Chinese Kung Fu, the way he picked it up, he would exchange the knowledge in Wing Chun for different styles. And of course, it was between him and the person he traded with. So he usually picked the second or third or fourth or fifth man within the hierarchy of the top five in each Kung Fu system.
He comes to America, meets students that are pretty much street brawlers, wrestlers, boxers. That kind of molds and changes thoughts. You know, he gets into different fights and different altercations throughout the early part of his life as early adulthood, and goes from 1960 from doing a Jun Fan Gung Fu, you know, evolving and modifying Wing Chun and all the other things that he studied, having more experience. He comes to LA, meets Danny Asano, he meets all these different people. He performs in the International Karate Championship mid-1960s, and things start to change for him more. He meets more people, he evolves more, and he has students. He starts to name his new thing Jeet Kune Do.
To me, at least the way that when I teach it, all type of knowledge ultimately means self-knowledge.
He's exploring and he's having experiences that are constantly changing his mindset about what fighting is all about. And so by the time he has the LA school opens up, Danny Asano is running it, he has an understanding of what he's really trying to develop.
Jun Fan is the base system. It has curriculum in it. It has a definite pattern. Jeet Kune Do really is it stems off of Jun Fan Gung Fu. He wanted you to have the base in Jun Fan Gung. It can be taught, but you would be losing it if you started to standardize it, because everyone is individual. He knew the direction in which he wanted to do it purposely. He just knew the direction when he was creating this. And it was created for him. But Jun Fan Gung Fu, we have to learn how to take the system and make it for ourselves.
Jun Fan Gung Fu is the base system. Jun Fan Gung Fu is the kicking, the punching, the trapping, the grappling, okay? In Jeet Kune Do, the philosophy, things like economy of motion, efficiency, directness of your attack, simplicity, the JKD's 5 ways to attack: simple, angulated attack, single direct attack, simple direct attack, for instance, attack by combination, progressive indirect attack, hand immobilizing attack or foot immobilizing attack, attack by combination, attack by draw. These 5 ways to attack are some of the, those are principles that he saw. These are the ways that you can fight when it comes to striking, when it comes to coming in. When we talk about principles, we talk about strong side forward, intercepting, best defense is a strong offense, non-telegraphing, attack-based telegraphing cues. In other words, attack based on somebody showing their telegraphing cues, taking advantage of that. Stop hit, stop kick, simultaneously parrying and punching, single fluid motion, stance, always maintaining a center line based on your size, light on your feet, adaptive. Footwork is the key to adaptability. When we talk about trapping range, we talk about occupying center line, maintaining center line, attacking center line, constantly changing center line. Philosophy, be like water. In other words, you need to be able to adapt just like water does, okay? The next one's flow like water. That means that your movement needs to be fluid, not rigid and hard. Economy of motion, being able to do movements that make sense, okay? Economy motion, movements that make sense. Everything corresponds and goes together with each other. Stop hit, From a distance, the opponent has to give the indication of preparing to attack. This facilitates an ability to intercept, stopping the attacker in middle of their attack. Deflect and parry, or parry and punch. The key to fighting is always being offensive, and so the parry and punch is a way to always be offensive while deflecting your opponent's attack. Blocking and countering is inefficient due to the inability to score enough strikes to keep your consistent pressure on your opponent to overwhelm them and bring them to an unconsciousness or submission. Low kicks. It is important to note that in a violent altercation, based on the pressure your opponent gives you, will dictate the base and stance and what tools you will be able to apply in an attack. If your opponent is really trying to hurt you and it is not a tournament or competition, the pressure and intent plays a very important role in how and what tools you are going to use in the fight. Economy of motion plays a very important role in whether or not to use a low line kick or a high line kick. If the pressure is strong, then low kicks can only be applied because the stability, quickness, and timing of the engagement itself. Since low line kicks are short but to the point, reducing distance, a low kick must travel, which emphasizes the break stability of stance and pressure. If there is a break in distance, timing, and range, and the pressure, a high kick could be utilized as long as the range of the attack is non-telegraphing and it is out of sight of the opponent's vision. If you are wanting to be rapid striking and hands and feet at the low line kicks are efficient in close quarter range and trapping. What is this whole purpose? What is the peak purpose of what Jeet Kune Do is? Jeet Kune Do is to help you find, after you've developed and trained in the Jun Fan, which is at that time was his best way of fighting, okay? The best way to kick, the best way to punch, the best way to deal with trapping range, the best way to go into grappling range. So that is the thing that is missing in this whole thing. People just say, well, I'm doing Jeet Kune Do, okay? The truth is that it's twofold, okay? You have a foundation, okay, which is the tools. You have the principles, concepts, theories, and philosophy that help develop that where? In live motion, which means sparring, fighting, contesting, battle testing. That means high pressure, testing it, okay? Where somebody's contesting what you're doing, not just sitting there and doing a punching series or sitting there and doing drills. You have to test out everything, okay? But you have to start somewhere. So Jun Fan Gung Fu is the fundamentals, the base, okay? This is how you punch. This is how you kick. This is how you grapple. This is how you trap. This is what happens when you get into clinch range. So these are the things that you need to understand about Jeet Kune Do. When people say Jeet Kune Do, when I hear Jeet Kune Do, I don't think of the techniques, okay? I think of the philosophy, the theories, the principles that you're using. Split entry, those are principles. How to strike at the same time, how to intercept, how to change lines, how to center line theory, all these different things. That is the Jeet Kune Do, okay? Where it really comes in is in live motion. When you spar, when you fight, when you battle test, that's where Jeet Kune Do comes in. And you have a Jeet Kune Do instructor there going, all right, this is what this one aspect of it is being coached. That's what Bruce would do. He would coach people and say, oh, try this. It looks like you seem to have this a little bit better. You're able to do this movement. This seems like something that you're adopting. That's one aspect. The other aspect is that you are internally, you as an individual, Bruce Lee says, you don't fight like me. You fight like you, okay? And so when you're in live motion, you're gonna figure out what works best for you after you have a good amount of foundation and fundamentals down. How to punch, you need to know how to punch already. You need to know how to slip and duck and bob and weave, parry, kick, trap, grapple, standing up, grappling on the ground. You need to have those fundamentals first. I mean, a big amount of that. Obviously, you need to start sparring after you get some of those down, but it is a process. That process is a Jeet Kune Do process. Jeet Kune Do is simply learning how to express yourself in live motion, to express yourself inside sparring naturally.
So therefore, they are coming in to, and ask me to teach them not so much of how to defend themselves or how to do somebody in. Rather, they want to learn to express themselves through some movement, be it anger, be it determination, or whatsoever. So in other words, what I'm saying, therefore, is that he is paying me to show him in combative form the art of expressing the human body.
And this is a big thing, I think, that's misunderstood, because you have all these Jeet Kune Do practitioners, and they are all the same. They're all, they're all doing these same erratic movements, okay? That are, they just look the same. They're all doing the same stuff. Bruce Lee did not want us to all fight the same way. Bruce Lee wanted us to find for ourselves, okay, to find out what we truly are capable of, to find out what we could do. The launch pad is Jun Fan Gung Fu, okay? That's the launch pad. The idea is you find the most simple, direct, and efficient things. As time goes on, you have to evolve.
The Jeet Kune Do of Bruce Lee has the Jun Fan Gung Fu material in the beginning. And then from there, they're supposed to grow and expand. That is Jeet Kune Do, and it is different for every individual.
That's why Danny Asano, for instance, that's why he's incorporated Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Shudo, Ketchum Cam, Valutu, all these different things he's incorporated into his ground game, for instance, because that was the thing that was lacking the most in Jun Fan Gung Fu. So as the time evolves, just like if you look at a heavyweight, you look at Muhammad Ali, and then you look at Mike Tyson, the evolution of boxing from the 1960s to the 1980s and 1990s has changed hugely. Well, guess what? The way you fight has to change. So those people that are stuck, okay, you got your basics, okay? Beginner, intermediate, advanced basics in Jun Fan Gung Fu. You need to learn that. You need to know how to box. You need to know how to kick. You need to know how to trap and grapple and clinch and ground game, takedowns, all that stuff. You need to know how to do that. As we've evolved, we have more stuff, even new stuff. But getting that foundation down is key, okay? Getting those foundations down are key. That's a key essential, because Jeet Kune Do rolls in when you're fighting in live motion. You're learning how to incorporate these ideas of, for instance, you strike before, during, or after. For instance, somebody attacks you. Intercepting, okay? Cutting the line, changing lines constantly, cadence, all the things that you read in books that other people have written usually, but it's based on some of their notes. For instance, Tao of Jeet Kune Do. Tao of Jeet Kune Do is just a bunch of his notes. Some of those things are outdated. Some of those things are still very, very prevalent and very, very important in today's world. So my point of this video is to help you understand, because I've been doing Jeet Kune Do since 1993, 94, okay? I've studied with several different people. I've studied Jun Fan Jeet Kune Do. I study Wing Chun. I want to understand. I study Savate, boxing, all the different things that you see incorporated. Now, my personal opinion, some people may have a different opinion, is that, I know for a fact that Bruce Lee incorporated, he started in the later part of his years, the last 3 years of his life, he was incorporating Muay Thai. He was incorporating a lot of other things that some people may say wasn't true. But I've seen the notes, okay? Danny Asano, he went over to Thailand when Bruce was filming over there, and he wrote notes down about what he liked about the Thai fighters. Bruce Lee had 8mm film of those Thai fighters. So there's a lot more things that were incorporated into Jun Fan Jeet Kune Do, or Jun Fan Gung Fu, that at the later part of his life that a lot of people do not know, because he was constantly evolving.
There's a camp that want to teach original Jeet Kune Do material. as taught by Bruce Lee. But the point of what I want to say about that is the people that sometimes push that, they don't know the entire original material. And even if they did know the entire original material, to hold it in that time frame, and it's good. And the people should study what was taught at that time period and then expand upon it. If you don't expand upon it, you don't grow. People say, well, that's all I have to know is what Bruce Lee taught me in 1964 or 1967 or 1971 or something. That's all I need. I've heard that before from many people. To do that is to go against the philosophy, against the concepts that Bruce Lee had and against his principles, because that's not what Bruce Lee is all about.
He was constantly trying to find what works best, okay? That is the idea of what Jeet Kune Do, that's the biggest philosophy. What works best in live motion? And guess what? People are not fighting the same as they did in the 1960s. He was going against guys that were doing blocks, okay? So that's where these type of traps would work. Now he started to realize, oh, now I'm going against a boxer. So I can still do traps, but they're gonna be modified because it's not working against a boxer. So I could maybe trap something real quick, but it's not gonna be this heavily evolved thing because people aren't holding their hands inside this box all the time. They are sometimes. But the idea is that you go into clinch. He goes, oh, the Muay Thai clinch. You got the elbows and the, in the Burmese, you got the headbutts and the knees and the eye gouging and all that stuff like that. You need to understand that there's an evolution. There's constantly, every 5 years, there's a change in the way people fight. I mean, all you have to do is go into Joe Rogan's videos, or you go into, and you go watch jujitsu. Jujitsu's evolving every 5 years. Boxing's evolving every 5 years. All these different fighting arts are evolving. Jeet Kune Do is just helping you to help you be the best you can be in the fight. You use the principles that are in Jeet Kune Do to help you be a better fighter, okay? That's all Bruce was trying to do. People are indoctrinating too much about what Jeet Kune Do is and what it is not. And what we have to do is we have to truly understand what Jeet Kune Do. It is not a style or a system, because if it became a style or a system, it would not be able to evolve with the time.
But if you do not have styles, if you just say, well, here I am, as a human being, how can I express myself totally and completely? Now, that way, you won't create a style, because style is a crystallization, that way, it's a process of continuing growth.
We're going to be fighting different for 100 years from now. Everything's going to change. Everything changes every 5 years. So you have to have this understanding up front. People that get stuck, they get stuck on indoctrinations and Bruce hated that stuff. Written in stone, it's there, it's forever. No, you have to evolve with the times. It's just like a computer programmer, software designer, somebody that is working in marketing, for instance. They're constantly having to evolve because every year, every 2 years, everything is changing so much. Google algorithms are changing constantly so much. And Bruce Lee knew this and he understood this. And so that's why he said, Jeet Kune Do is not a style or a system. It is a way to find out how to truly express yourself in live motion, how to fight, how to evolve, and constantly keep your eye on the target. Keep your eye on the prize. The prize is that you're able to adapt in live motion. Final thoughts. It is important to remember that Jun Fan's base system is just a starting point, but Bruce Lee never thought to have a fixed framework or style or system. Remember, as time changes, the way we fight changes. So therefore, the curriculum must evolve with those changes. Jeet Kune Do's main focus is to evolve learning adaptation inside of live motion through self-expression. I hope that you walk away with this in a positive light. Please don't get mad at me about what I have to say because of somebody's taught you something. Instead, think about what I'm saying. Come into it, in other words, with an empty slate and take it in. If it doesn't work for you and you want to stay dogmatic and indoctrinated by what you've been taught by your teachers or what you've read or, you know, by some authority, go right ahead. But only thing that's going to be stopped is your progression. And progression, you have to progress. You cannot get stuck and stagnant in the 1960s. You have to constantly be changing and evolving. And so that's why we have to keep our eye on the prize. That's what Bruce Lee wanted us to do, is stay focused on what was important. And what is important is to be able to adapt in live motion. And if you think you're going to fight somebody from the 1960s, think again. People fight differently now. That means that you've got to fight differently, and you've got to take this on in a different perspective, in a different light. Like, subscribe, comment down below, hit the bell to be notified every time there is a new video coming out. Thank you so much for your support, and I hope you have a wonderful day.